So you've decided to ruin your life. You've dug yourself into a hole and can't find your way out. You're in debt. You work all the time, but somehow you're still living paycheck to paycheck. Maybe you feel like it's always going to be this way and you're always going to struggle.
I want to be rich!
Or worse, maybe you don't even realize you have a problem. Maybe you think your financial situation is normal. Here in North America, we have a pretty skewed perception of what normal means. Here, it is normal to live paycheck to paycheck. It's normal to have thousands of dollars of credit card debt and to just finance everything and make the minimum monthly payments. It's normal to have no savings. It's normal to have a $500 or $600 a month car payment. But something being normal doesn't mean that it's good. It just means that it's common. Do you know what else is common? Herpes. But you wouldn't want that, would you? A couple weeks ago, I made a video going over 8 signs you might be doing better financially than you think you are. And I have to say, I really tried in that video. I really tried to be optimistic and encouraging and positive, but boy, that does not come easy to me. This video is going to be a lot more raw and a lot more real, and this is going to be a follow-up to that video. This video is going to be going over 8 signs you might actually be doing worse financially than you think you are, and more importantly, how to fix the issues. Basically, how to unfuck your finances. Let's do it. The very first sign that you're probably doing worse financially than you might realize is that you don't follow a budget. And yes, I know that budgets are not fun and they're not sexy, but you know what is fun and sexy? Being able to spend money freely on whatever you want. And if you don't have a budget, you're probably not going to be able to afford to do that. Having at least a simple budget is the absolute 101 of personal finance, because if you don't have a budget, then you don't know where your money's going. And if you don't know where your money's going, you don't know where the problems are. And if you don't know where the problems are, how are you supposed to fix them? Like, imagine taking your car into the mechanic and being like, hey, my car needs to be fixed. And then the mechanic's like, okay, sure, what's wrong with it? And you're like, I don't know. And he's like, but what's the problem? Like, obviously you're having a problem. What's the problem? Is it not starting? Is it leaking oil? Like, what's going on? And you're like, I don't know, just fix it. Doesn't make any sense, right? Your finances are pretty much exactly the same. Following a basic budget will allow you to see where all your money's going. It'll allow you to see where you're overspending and why you're always broke when the end of the month rolls around. Following this budget can also give you the flexibility and freedom to be able to allocate more money to the things you want to spend on. At the bare minimum, you at least need to be tracking your spending. I do so using a free app that I found. I think it's called Spending Tracker, something simple like that. But basically, every single time I get paid, I input into the app how much money I made. And then likewise, every time I spend money, no matter how much or how little I spent, I input that into the app. And at the end of the month, I can see how much money I spent, how much money I made, how much money I saved, where it all went. It's really important that you do this and you do it diligently. Don't half-ass this. This is your life. Just make a goddamn budget. It doesn't have to be complicated. The second sign you might be doing a lot worse financially than you realize is that you pay more for things than you have to, or you pay for things you don't use at all. This one's actually really simple. Start by auditing your subscription services. Cancel the shit you don't need and downgrade or minimize the rest. Netflix? Gone. Amazon Prime? Gone. That gym membership that you paid for but you never use? Gone. Most services nowadays run on a subscription business model, and I can't honestly say that I love it, but I do accept the fact that that's just our reality, it's just the world that we're living in. But it's really important that you're using these subscription services to your advantage and not letting them use you. If you're getting sufficient value out of something, that's great, pay for it, use it, enjoy it, but anything that you're not using at all, or at least not using enough to warrant paying for, has gotta go. Those small monthly payments, the $10 or $20 here or there, adds up much quicker than you realize, and before you know it, you're spending hundreds of dollars a month on things you may not even be using at all. It completely blows my mind how lazy some people can be, that they would rather continue to pay $10, $20, $30 a month for something they're not using than to take 5 minutes to either go online or make a quick call and just cancel the service. And being lazy and flippant about your money like that is a sure sign that you're fucking things up, because it's a sign that you don't respect your money and you don't respect the time that it took you to earn that money, and by proxy, you don't even respect yourself. Is that extreme? I don't know. I think it's true. But of course, there are some services that we all have to pay for, even if we don't really want to, things like insurance or internet or our phone bill. But why would you want to give these greedy corporations more than you have to? Why would you want to overpay for things like your phone bill when you can be paying as low as $15 a month with today's video partner, Mint Mobile? I'm sure you guys have all heard me talk about Mint Mobile before, and I am not about to stop anytime soon because it drives me crazy when people overpay for things. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless service from as low as $15 a month, and because they run on the nation's largest 5G network, your speed, your coverage, your data, everything's pretty much exactly the same as you're already getting, except for your phone bill, which is going to be a lot less. And the best part of Mint is that switching over is super simple. The entire process can be done online and it only takes about 15 minutes. Your current wireless company is completely ripping you off. They are completely overcharging you and they know it. And the only thing that they can hold on to, the only thing that they can grasp at is trying to convince you that it's a big deal to switch, that it's a headache, that it's a hassle, and it's not at all. And just until the end of January, new Mint customers who sign up and prepay for 3 months of service can get any plan, including the unlimited plan, which is usually $30 a month, for just $15 a month. So if you're sick of getting ripped off and you're sick of being taken advantage of and overcharged and you're ready to switch over, go to mintmobile.com/accordingtonicole or click the link in the description box down below. Thank you to Mint for partnering with me on today's video. You guys have no idea how mad it makes me when I feel like I'm getting overcharged or ripped off. Okay, moving on. The next sign that you might be doing much worse financially than you realize is a really important one, and it's that you don't have an emergency fund. 56% of Americans can't cover a $1,000 emergency in cash, and that is a terrifying statistic. That is the majority of America that doesn't have $1,000 saved. But the majority of Americans also have Netflix, Amazon Prime, they take Ubers, they order in food. If this sounds like you, I hate to say it, but it is time to grow up. As Caleb Hammer likes to say, not having an emergency fund is an emergency, and the homie's right. Emergencies, both big and small, happen to all of us. Something breaking unexpectedly in your house, you getting sick and having to take time off work, an unexpected vet bill for your dog or cat. These things are inevitabilities. They happen to everybody at some point. But if you don't have any money set aside in preparation for these situations, then when they arise, and they will, you're gonna have no choice but to take on debt. And most likely it's gonna be high interest debt, like a credit card or worse. And that debt will become yet another monthly payment you have to worry about every single month, causing you to stretch your paycheck even thinner, making it even more difficult for you to save money. Every $100 that you have to contribute towards a debt payment every month is $100 you could have otherwise been saving or investing to better your own life. But you didn't have an emergency fund, and now you're underwater, again. Even if it means taking really extreme measures and cutting out absolutely everything extra for a few months to be able to save up a few $1,000s, the importance cannot be understated. You have to put money aside for a rainy day. At some point, everyone gets caught in the rain, and you don't want to have to go into debt when it happens to you. The fourth sign that your finances are out of control is that you look at things as monthly payments rather than acknowledging the total cost. Oh my god, this one drives me crazy. But the vast majority of things that people take out loans for are depreciating assets, and they're paying high interest on something that is losing value by the day. Maybe this is a hot take, but it shouldn't be. But if you have to finance something, it's probably a good sign that you can't afford it. Whether we're talking about a car or a big screen TV, or thanks to services like Affirm, a freaking air fryer, you can finance everything apparently nowadays. A lot of people, maybe even most people, don't consider the full purchase price when they're making a finance purchase. They just look at the monthly payment. They decide if the monthly payment is something they're comfortable with, and if so, they go ahead with it, without ever considering how much money they're actually going to be spending over the lifetime of the loan, or if it's something that they even actually need to be spending money on in the first place. What a lot of people don't realize is that monthly payments can be manipulated to be pretty much whatever you want them to be, and that doesn't mean you're getting a good deal. Car dealerships are notorious for this. You go in and you look at a car and you can't afford to buy it in cash, so you start talking about financing. And the dealer comes up with a deal for you and you say, oh no, that's too much, I don't want to spend that every month. So they do some finagling, and then all of a sudden they have a lower payment for you and you're thrilled. But what's usually happened is they've just stretched out the length of the loan, so you're going to be paying for the car longer and you're actually going to be paying more in the long run. But let's say you're looking at a $20,000 car and you can't afford it, so you're going to finance it. And the salesperson comes up with an 8% loan for you over 5 years, which works out to $405 a month. What a lot of people don't realize is that over that 5-year term, you're going to be paying more than $24,000 for that car. Now explain to me, make the math make sense here, where you couldn't afford $20,000, so now you're going to pay $24,000. That's almost 25% more when you didn't have it to begin with. But let's say you say to the salesman, no, $405 a month, that's too much, I can't afford that, I'm not comfortable with that. So he does a little bit of calculator magic and he comes back and he goes, how about $311 a month? And you're like, yeah, that's perfect, that's great, and you feel like you won, you feel like you got one over on him. No, you didn't. Now you're getting a 7-year loan, and at the end of that 7 years, your $311 a month comes out to over $26,000. But a lot of people don't have any understanding of that. They just look at the payment and they go, hey look, he knocked almost $100 a month off. I win, woohoo, I'm happy, I'm getting a new car. Looking at just the monthly payment rather than acknowledging the true total cost of something is a great sign that I hate to say it, but A, you're not financially literate, and B, like I said, you probably can't afford to be buying what you're buying. If you need a TV broken up into 24 monthly installments, you can't afford the TV. If you need to finance an air fryer through Affirm, you shouldn't be buying an air fryer. And salespeople love customers who only look at the monthly payment because they know you're an easy target. They know they can sell you something whether or not you can afford it. They know that they can finesse things in a way that you'll agree to, even if it's not in your best interest. Thankfully, once again, the solution here is pretty easy. If you can't afford to pay for something in full, don't buy it, especially if it's something you don't actually need.
My goodness, what an idea. Why didn't I think of that?
Find a cheaper alternative, buy something you can actually afford to pay for in full, and then take that amount of money that you would have been spending on that monthly payment and put it in a savings account. And after a couple years, if you still feel the itch to upgrade, now you have money and you can do so in cash. Don't buy things you can't afford, Don't take on debt for things that rapidly lose value, and always, always, always do the math and figure out how much you're going to be spending in total. Paying for things 1 month at a time is a great way to completely devastate your finances. Don't do it. Now, piggybacking directly off of that point, the next sign that you're probably doing worse financially than you realize is that you sign things you don't understand. It completely blows my mind how many people are willing to just sign something that they haven't even read and don't understand. People frequently take out loans without knowing the interest rate, without knowing the term of the loan, without knowing the conditions and clauses of the loan, without knowing how much money they're going to be spending in total like we just talked about. I don't know if it's like a blind trust in salespeople, or if they're just so excited about whatever it is that they're buying that they don't care and they're willing to agree to anything no matter how predatory or terrible it might be, or maybe they're just so excited about the thing that they don't even consider it or think about it in the moment. Maybe people are like intimidated to admit that they don't understand something and they're embarrassed to ask for clarification. I really don't know.
Oh, then after your final monthly payment, there's the routine CBP or crippling balloon payment.
But that's not for a while, right?
Right.
Sweet.
Under no circumstances should you ever just sign something without fully understanding all the details, especially where your money's concerned, but really overall. And if you're given a contract and there's something you don't understand, you should not feel dumb for asking for an explanation at all. And in fact, I would say it comes across much smarter, much wiser to ask for clarification on something, to push back a little bit, than to just sign something you haven't even read. And once you've done that, if anything in a contract doesn't sit well with you, if you don't think something's fair, if something seems sketchy, or you're not happy with what's there, negotiate. Everything in life is negotiable. But never just trust the word of a stranger whose income depends on selling you something. The next sign that your finances are probably a mess, and maybe even that your life is a mess, is that you have no plans to improve your situation. Every day, I talk to people who are around my age, maybe sometimes even a little older, people who are in their 30s or even 40s, who are complaining about the circumstances of their life, who are unhappy with the environment that they're in. They complain that their job is dead end and they're not making enough money, that they're living with their parents still or with a whole bunch of roommates and they hate it. They have a ton of debt and no idea how they're ever going to pay it off. But rarely in these situations does anyone ever mention having a plan to change their circumstances, to increase their income, to get a better job, to re-educate themselves, to do whatever it is that they need to do to fix the situation that they're in that's currently making them unhappy. It seems like everybody has someone to blame. They blame politics, they blame their parents, they blame their boss. And those things might actually be true. Like, I agree politically that our economy and our society is pretty screwed. And they might actually have valid reasons to have issues with the way that their parents raised them or the things that did or didn't happen when they were a child. Their boss might actually be a dick. Like, all of those things could quite possibly be completely objectively true, but that doesn't change the fact that ultimately you still have to be the one to make the changes. Like, the situation you're in may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. Life is hard, and the system is corrupt, and things are unfair. But at some point, you have to have the maturity and the self-awareness to take a step back and realize that even if those things are true, this is the situation that we're living in. This is the society that we're living in. And we have two options. We can sit there and bitch and complain, or we can try to improve our personal situation. We can try and have some accountability to whatever degree we can change and do it. This is something that I've personally come up against a lot recently in dating, and I've actually thought about making an entire video about this. If that's something you'd be interested in seeing, leave me a comment, let me know, and I will do that. But it just really is unsettling and frustrating and upsetting how many people I encounter who are fully formed adults but still complain about things like they're teenagers and still refuse to take accountability at all for the situation that they're in and the choices they may have made that may have contributed to them being where they are. If you're 35 years old and living in your parents' basement and making minimum wage and feeling stuck in life, the only person who's going to be able to dig you out of that hole is you. If you're not currently where you want to be, that's totally okay. Everybody needs stepping stones. But if in 5 years from now you're in the same spot because you've taken no initiative to try to change it, at that point it is your fault. Here comes yet another hot take, but if you're living in the West, if you're in a developed country and you're an adult and you're able-bodied and you're only earning minimum wage, that's a choice you're making. I said what I said. The next point we're going to talk about is one that I think gets very, very frequently overlooked, particularly by younger people, meaning people in their 20s and 30s, and that is that you don't have anything saved for retirement. When you're young, it can be hard to imagine reaching retirement age, but I have some bad news for you. You're not going to be young forever.
I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was. Now what I'm with isn't it, and what's it seems weird and scary to me. It'll happen to you.
And unless you want to be working till the day that you die, you have to start saving for retirement. And the earlier you can save, the better off you're going to be. That might sound obvious, but this is much more urgent than a lot of people realize, because compound growth is the most powerful force in growing your wealth and ultimately building your retirement. The earlier you start investing, the longer your money has to compound and the faster and bigger it's going to grow. If you were to start investing $500 a month every month from the time you were 25, by the age of 65, you'd have over $1.7 million. Sounds awesome, right? But if you waited 10 years to get started and began investing that same $500 a month at age 35, by 65 years old, you'd have less than $750,000. That's a difference of $1 million. $1 million.
$1 million.
And here's something else that's even crazier to think about. $500 a month is $6,000 a year. So from the age of 25 to 35, $6,000 a year over 10 years, that's $60,000. You're only putting in $60,000 of your own money in exchange for $1 million of compounding growth. Like imagine if I walked up to you and I said, hey, if you can save $60,000 on your own, I'll give you an extra $1 million for free. And you're like, no thanks, I'm good. I'd rather go to McDonald's and buy a nice car. Like, are you crazy? Your 20s is the best decade of your life for investing. And if that has already passed, that's okay. Your 30s is the next best decade of your life. And if that's already passed, listen, we could go on forever here. Yesterday might have been the best day. Today is the second best day. Regardless of how old you are, start investing as early as you can, start investing as much as you can. But recognize that every seemingly inconsequential purchase, the $5 here, the $100 there, the $1,000 there, is not just $5 or $100 or $1,000. It could be worth $1 million. And finally, the eighth and last sign that you might be doing much worse financially than you realize is that you conflate your needs with your wants. I see this a lot. It actually kind of surprises me how often it happens and the mental gymnastics people can do to make it happen. We all have needs, right? Food, shelter, transportation, utilities, all that fun stuff. And most of us have wants, and wants are great. Having wants is normal and healthy and natural, and it's what makes life fun. But if you are struggling to cover your needs, there cannot be room for wants until that changes. Choosing to order in dinner simply because you don't feel like cooking is a want. Choosing to take an Uber instead of a bus is a want. Buying a $30,000 car instead of a $5,000 car is a want. And I don't say that to begrudge anyone of anything, but if you're struggling to get by, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, if you don't have an emergency fund, if you don't have any savings, you really do need to differentiate between your needs and your wants. And maybe this is hot take number 3, or maybe this whole video is just hot takes, I don't know. But I think that financial illiteracy and immaturity go hand in hand. I'm sure that's gonna offend some people, but I'm just gonna say it because I think it's true. When people try to justify making excessive or unnecessary purchases that they can't actually afford, it kind of reminds me of like a little kid trying to justify to their parents why they need some ridiculous Christmas gift that they don't actually need. If you want to be able to treat yourself to the luxuries of life, both big and small, you want to be able to spend money freely on the things that make you happy, even if they're not necessities, I think that's awesome, but that should be motivation for you to start getting your finances in order overall, so that one day you actually can do those things. But until you get to that point, until you get to the point where you're debt-free, and you have a fully funded emergency fund, and you have retirement savings, and everything is good and you're just coasting, by making unnecessary purchases, by conflating your wants and your needs and trying to justify them to yourself, all you're doing is self-sabotaging and making your situation harder, putting more hurdles in front of yourself and making your situation worse. In all honesty, I think these justifications are very much human nature. It's something that in some way, shape, or form we've probably all done in life. I know I certainly have. But at some point, you have to be able to rip the bandage off and have a real heart-to-heart with yourself and recognize that your choices are yours alone to make, but those consequences are yours alone to survive. And from personal experience, I have to tell you that that feeling of knowing that your bills are paid, knowing that you have money set aside so you're gonna be okay when you're older, knowing that you have an emergency fund so if something goes wrong, it's not chaos, it's just an inconvenience. That feeling is so much better than anything you could ever buy on Amazon or get at a drive-thru or buy at the mall. And I think that the only people who don't recognize that are the people who have never had the opportunity to experience it. And I want everybody to. So I'm hoping that this video has given you a little bit of insight. I'm hoping this video has allowed you to maybe see things through a different lens or look at your life in a different way, look at your habits differently. And hopefully it's given you something to think about to help you make better choices going forward if you haven't been doing so up till now. But as always, I'm very curious to hear your thoughts, so drop me a comment down below and let me know which of these points resonated the most with you, which one hit the closest to home. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and hit that like button and maybe consider subscribing if you haven't done so yet. You can also follow me on Instagram at according_to_Nicole. Other than that, thank you guys so much as always for watching. Take care, see you next week, have a good one, bye.